The FBI says a criminal group based in Russia, known as Dark Side, is responsible for the cyber attack on Colonial Pipeline. Colonial Pipeline is the company that delivers nearly half of all the fuel used on the East Coast. The pipeline is still largely shut down as a result. But the big concern, specifically is going to be that you're going to see a spike in prices. Why? Supply and demand. You get that. But what about the bigger price of this happening again and again and more seriously, because our infrastructure really isn't set up for this? Ransomware attacks are on the rise. They're getting bigger, more sophisticated, outpacing anything we're doing to stop it. And as far as the FBI knows, this isn't even a state actor. It's just a criminal gang. Now, look, they know this stuff better than I do, and I've worked with the cyber guys there for many years. But I have to tell you, there's not a lot that happens in Russia that the Russian government doesn't somehow have to tacitly or openly endorse. The perfect guest to dive into this is Senator Angus King. He's co-chair of the Cyberspace Solarium Commission. Good to have you.
Hey, Chris, good to be with you.
Yeah, it's been too long. I hope you're well. I hope all the mothers in your life got their due yesterday.
We had a great brunch with a lot of mothers. It was wonderful.
So let's do this Socratically. I don't care. This is what people do. People hack all the time. America hacks, Japan hacks, North Korea, South Korea, Russia. You all do it to each other. This is what it is, and it's just not worth getting that upset about. They'll figure it out.
No, it is worth getting upset about because, Chris, we keep getting these wake-up calls, and we're not waking up. I said to somebody the other day, we're looking at the longest wind-up for a punch in the history of the world. And we got one over the weekend, and we learned how vulnerable this pipeline system is. This is something I've been concerned with. In New England, we get 60% of our electricity from gas that's brought into the region by pipeline, and yet they don't have the same level of standards of cyber protection for the pipeline system that we have for the grid. But Chris, there's a bigger picture here. Remember, we've all seen those posters from World War II. Loose lips sink ships, do your part, they're doing theirs, that kind of thing. This is a new kind of conflict where it's not battleships and airplanes and armies. It's the private sector infrastructure that's at risk. 85% of the target space in cyberspace is in the private sector. And that's what we saw this weekend. Mm-hmm. And we're about to see the kind of disruption. And, if you want another sample, it's what happened in Texas when the weather brought the grid down. But that could have just as easily been a cyber attack. And that tells you what the kind of impacts it could have.
So why is this the only kind of attack that never gets anybody angry in America? If this had been human beings who did this with any kind of Russia connection, we would be on the brink of military conflict. God forbid if this had been Arabs or if these had been Muslim extremists, we would be on the brink. But when it's cyber, nobody seems to care. Is there something we can do to stop it?
Yes, we can quit being a cheap date. We can start responding. We can start imposing costs. And actually, the Biden administration about a month ago did impose some serious sanctions on Russia for the SolarWinds attack last year. But we've got to up that game. The sad truth is cyber is cheap. Putin can hire 8,000 hackers for the price of one jet airplane. So what they're doing, they're going to keep doing. Now, we don't know, as you pointed out, this is supposedly a criminal gang, but I'm not sure how you distinguish that from whether or not they have some connection to the Russian government. Actually, it was sort of humorous today. Apparently, this criminal gang has a website.
Right.
And they went on their own website to say, we didn't have anything to do with the government. We just want the money. So it was pure ransomware. Now, we can't confirm that, whether it had anything to do with the government. But the point is, people who are doing this kind of thing to our country should pay a price. And they should know that they're going to pay a price, and that's the only thing that will deter it. Now, if this was a gang of some kind in Russia, if Russia was a responsible player on the world scene, they would impose penalties. They wouldn't tolerate this happening within their border, and that's part of what has to happen here.
My promise. Let's do another segment on this. When you figure out the right fixes, for instance, Biden's got a huge price tag on the infrastructure bill. There is money for the power grid, but it doesn't address specifically cybersecurity. And you also have 85% of the infrastructure is privately owned. So you got to figure out how to get them to work in their own interests with government help. I know you're going to be on the answer side of this. When you figure it out, when you want to come on, the answer is yes. All right, Senator?
We'll be there, and I've got some suggestions. We'll do it in phase 2, Chris.
Thank you. Senator Angus King, be well. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
All right. The guy, let me tell you something. If you had 100 Angus Kings, we would not be in the situation we're in right now. He's an independent. He caucuses with the Democrats, but I've just known him for years. The guy's always straight. It is such a precious commodity now.